In the automotive world, red has only one meaning: Ferrari. It is the tyrant of speed and the entrance ticket for the rich. Every car that rolls out of Maranello carries the badge of a black prancing horse. That badge appears in billionaires' garages, on the highest step of the F1 podium, and on posters pinned to bedroom walls of boys around the world. Its founder, Enzo Ferrari, once said, "I sell cars so that I can go racing." That sounds like the romantic declaration of a pure racer. But if you know what lies behind it, the darkest days of losing his father and brother, the humiliation of being rejected by Fiat, the 2 decades of hiding under Alfa Romeo's wing, the business maneuver of using Ford as a bargaining chip to sell to his old enemy, you will understand that this prancing horse was not born from sunlight. It was stamped out of blood and snow. Today, we lead this horse from the muddy tracks of Modena right to your screen. Enzo Ferrari was born on February 18, 1898 in Modena, Italy. His father, Alfredo, ran a small metalworking shop that mainly made roofs and structural parts for railway carriages. They were not super rich, but the family lived decently. Enzo had a brother 2 years older, Dino. The two boys grew up following their father around, taking machines apart and turning screws. The daily conversations at home were all about wheels, pistons, and gears. When Enzo was 10, his father took him to a car race in Bologna, the 1908 Targa Florio. Cars screamed past him, kicking up dust and the smell of petrol. He didn't cry or flinch. He stood at the trackside, trembling. Years later, he wrote in his autobiography, "At that moment, I decided there was only one thing I would ever do: put the name Ferrari on a racing car." Fate did not give him an easy road. In 1914, World War I broke out. When Italy entered the war, both Enzo's father and brother were conscripted. The family workshop was taken over for military production, bayonets, and ammunition boxes. 16-year-old Enzo stayed behind, working 12 or more hours a day, single-handedly keeping the family business alive. In 1916, the Spanish flu swept across Europe. Within a few days, Enzo Ferrari received 2 telegrams. His father was dead, and his brother was dead. In one blow, he lost his family's pillar and its future heir. Enzo later used just one sentence to describe that winter in his memoirs: "It snowed heavily in Modena, and I never saw my family again." A young man not yet 20, without father or brother, left with a half-dead machine shop. He had no time to grieve, because if he stopped, his family would truly be finished. He ran the shop alone, took orders alone, and stayed up night after night at the lathe. By the time the war ended, he was only 21, but those years had forced him into the calm and coldness of a middle-aged man. Whatever warmth had once existed in his character was ground away. After the war, Italy's economy collapsed. Orders for the metalworking shop dried up. Enzo was forced to close the business and find another way to live. He heard that Fiat was hiring in Turin. He presented his credentials, mechanical background, over a decade of factory management, deep knowledge of car construction, and knocked on Fiat's door. The person at Fiat glanced at his CV, handed it back, and said something Enzo never forgot: "You don't have a university degree. We don't take you." That was not a legend. It was fact. Fiat rejected Enzo Ferrari. A young man in his early 20s who had just lost his entire family was thrown out by Italy's largest industrial giant like a piece of rubbish. He walked out of Fiat's door without breaking anything or shouting. He simply said to himself, "One day, you will beg to buy my cars." He went to Milan and found work as a test driver for a fire engine manufacturer called CMN. His job was simple: take a newly assembled chassis, drive it for a few hundred kilometers, and record what broke. He lived in an unheated attic, got up at 5 every morning, splashed his face with ice-cold water, and climbed into a chassis without a body. The winter wind cut through his bones as he circled the streets of Milan. He sent most of his salary back to Modena to support what was left of his family, living on the simplest bread and coffee. Back then, Enzo had no car factory, no team, no money. But he had one thing: suicidal driving skill. In 1920, a turning point arrived. Alfa Romeo, one of Italy's largest car makers, was looking for racing drivers. Enzo went for a test. After one lap, Alfa's engineers looked at each other speechless. This man was faster than their own factory drivers. He was hired as a professional racing driver. This was Enzo's first real entry into the core of the automotive industry. Over the next few years, he won more than a dozen major races and became a household name in Italy. But the most important thing he gained during those years was not trophies. It was a person. In 1923, Enzo won a victory at the Savio circuit. After the race, he met Countess Paolina Baracca, the mother of Francesco Baracca, a World War I fighter ace and Italian national hero. Baracca had been shot down and killed in 1918. On the side of his aircraft was painted a black prancing horse. The Countess said to Enzo, "My son said this horse brought him luck. Now I give it to you. Put it on your racing cars." Enzo accepted. He placed the black horse on a yellow shield. Yellow is the color of Modena. That is the entire secret of the Ferrari Prancing Horse badge. It was not designed by an advertising agency. It was not a product of market research. It was a mother's request. In 1929, Enzo did something that changed the landscape of Italian motor racing. He founded Scuderia Ferrari in Modena. Notice, he had not yet built his own cars. His business model was straightforward. Buy race cars from Alfa Romeo, enter them under his own team's name, with Alfa providing technical support, while Enzo found drivers, sponsors, and logistics. This was rare in Europe at the time. Essentially, he was Alfa's outsourcing partner. But what Enzo wanted was not contract manufacturing. He wanted control. Throughout the 1930s, Scuderia Ferrari expanded rapidly under Alfa's wing. He signed the top drivers of the era, equipped them with the best mechanics, and painted the cars in the now famous red. Alfa realized a problem. Enzo Ferrari, their supplier, was becoming more famous than Alfa itself. Enzo began to show open ambition. He wanted to build cars with his own engine and his own Prancing Horse badge. Alfa's board was not happy. In 1937, Alfa bought Scuderia Ferrari outright and turned Enzo into the manager of Alfa's racing department. A promotion in name, but a demotion in reality. Enzo endured for 2 years. In 1939, he broke with Alfa for good. When he left, he signed a document that said, for 4 years after leaving, he could not design or build any car under the name Ferrari. That was not a non-compete clause, it was a cage. A 49-year-old man, evicted without the right to use his own name. He did not cry. He signed the paper, quietly returned to Modena, and began doing one thing: secretly building a Ferrari without the name Ferrari. In 1940, the clouds of World War II gathered over Europe. Enzo and a few old comrades began designing a new car in an old workshop in Modena. To avoid violating Alfa's non-compete agreement, the car was not called Ferrari. It was called the Auto Avio Costruzione 815. The name was long and awkward, but anyone who knew cars could see this was a racing machine. 2 815s were built, entered one race, and then war broke out in earnest. All civilian racing stopped. During the war, Enzo's factory was requisitioned and turned to making machine tools and aircraft parts. In 1944 and 1945, Allied bombers hit Modena twice. His factory was reduced to rubble. Enzo made a shrewd decision. He did not rebuild on the same site. Instead, he moved a dozen kilometers away to a small, out-of-the-way town, Maranello. The place was so desolate it was hard to find on a map, far from bombing targets, quiet, and with cheap land. That decision changed Ferrari's fate for the next century. In 1947, the non-compete ban expired. Enzo reopened the Maranello factory and launched the first car to truly wear the Ferrari Prancing Horse badge, the 125S. It was powered by a 1.5-liter V12 engine, making 118 horsepower. That power figure sounds laughable today, But in 1947, it was the most ferocious efficiency of any engine of its size. The V12 configuration has been used by Ferrari from its first production car all the way to the present, unbroken for over 70 years. The 125S won its first race, the Grand Prix of Rome, on its debut. Enzo was there. He did not smile. He lit a cigarette and said to the mechanic beside him, "This is only the beginning." From that day on, Enzo Ferrari became a pure racing maniac. He discovered a contradiction that troubled him. The profit from road cars was far larger than from racing. Building a GT car for a wealthy client could finance the team for years. But deep down, he looked down on making money by selling cars. He said a famous line, "Road cars are the devil's money. I live off them, but I live for racing." This is the biggest difference between Ferrari and other luxury brands. Porsche seeks a balance between track and road. Lamborghini was born simply to beat Ferrari. But Ferrari from the beginning was sell cars to raise money to go racing. Enzo's image in post-war Italy was complicated. On one hand, he was a national hero. Italians were deeply insecure after the war, especially in industry, and Ferrari was one of the few brands that could openly crush British and German rivals. On the other hand, he offended almost everyone. He pitted his own drivers against each other, believing in a survival code that only winners deserve to live. In the 1950s, Ferrari's fatal accident rate was the highest of any team. The Italian church publicly attacked Ferrari as Saturn devouring his children, the mythical tyrant who ate his own offspring. Enzo never responded. In the 1960s, Ferrari fell into deep financial trouble. Enzo poured all his money into F1 and sports car racing. The profits from road cars could never fill the hole. He needed cash. He went to Ford. In 1963, Henry Ford II flew to Maranello in person to propose buying Ferrari. Ford's offer was generous, $18 million for a majority stake, while letting Enzo continue to run the racing department. But buried in the contract was a line. Ford would control Ferrari's budget and racing decisions. When Enzo read that line, his face changed. He put the contract on the table and said to Henry Ford II, "You can buy my factory, but you will not buy my racing." The deal collapsed. Ford II stormed out. Back in America, he did one thing, launched the Ford GT40 program. His instruction was simple: beat Ferrari at Le Mans. And beat them, they did. Ford GT40 won Le Mans 4 years in a row from 1966 to 1969. Ferrari was humiliated on the track for 4 straight years. But Enzo did not care about losing Le Mans to Ford, because he turned around and did something that stunned everyone. In 1969, he sold 50% of Ferrari to Fiat, the same Fiat that had rejected and humiliated him in 1918. Enzo had used Ford as leverage to get far more favorable terms from Fiat. Fiat would only handle road car production and sales. The racing team and all racing decisions would be 100% controlled by Enzo Ferrari. From 1969 onward, Fiat pumped money into Ferrari, and Enzo kept burning cash on the track. That was not just a business calculation. It was one man's reply, 50 years later, to "You don't have a degree. We don't take you." In the 1970s, Ferrari entered the Niki Lauda era on the F1 track. In 1976, Lauda had a horrific accident at the Nürburgring, suffering severe burns to his face and spending weeks in a coma. Everyone expected him to retire. But Lauda returned to the track just 42 days later and finished 4th at Monza. Enzo's only comment was, "That's a real Ferrari driver." Enzo loved Lauda not only because he was fast, but because he proved the Ferrari spirit: never admit defeat. In the 1980s, Ferrari got an unexpected blockbuster, the Testarossa. Its 4.9-liter flat 12 engine made 390 horsepower. The design was wildly aggressive, enormous side intakes like the gills of a shark, rear-wheel arches so exaggerated they looked unreal. But what truly made it legendary was its appearance in the hit TV series Miami Vice in 1984. Don Johnson, in a white linen suit, leaning against a white Testarossa. That image became the defining symbol of the entire yuppie era of the 1980s. Ferrari's customers had been silver-haired, old rich men. The Testarossa brought in a new crowd, young Wall Street traders in suspenders. Ferrari became part of pop culture for the first time. But for Enzo, production cars were always a sideshow. The real farewell came in 1987, the F40. The F40 was the last new car developed under Enzo Ferrari's direct supervision. Its origin was a 40th anniversary celebration for Ferrari. But when the F40 was unveiled at Maranello, everyone present could see that this was not an anniversary car. This was Enzo's last testament. The F40 had no radio, no sound deadening, no air conditioning, no door handles. You opened the door with a nylon pull strap. It carried a 2.9-liter twin-turbo V8 producing 478 horsepower, weighed only 1,100 kilograms, and could top 320 kilometers per hour. In 1987, it was the fastest production car money could buy. Enzo did not attend the F40 launch. He was 89 years old, in very poor health, barely able to walk. But he sent a message. This is how I see Ferrari: uncompromising, uncomfortable, and not cheap. On August 14, 1988, Enzo Ferrari died in Maranello at the age of 90. When he died, Ferrari's global annual sales were fewer than 4,000 cars. But this small, proud, almost obstinate brand would achieve even greater glory after his death. After Enzo passed, Ferrari entered a period dominated by Fiat. In the early 1990s, Ferrari struggled. F1 results plummeted and road car designs were criticized as too conservative. The turning point came in 1996 when Michael Schumacher joined Ferrari. Schumacher brought former Benetton technical director Ross Brawn and designer Rory Byrne. That triumvirate took 4 years to pull Ferrari out of the ruins. From 2000 to 2004, Schumacher won the F1 Drivers' Championship 5 times in a row, and Ferrari won the Constructors' title 6 years straight. Those 5 years, Schumacher rewrote almost every F1 record. Enzo once said, "My favorite car is the next one." During the Schumacher era, that phrase was amplified. After every victory, the team's thought was not celebration, but how to win the next one. In 2015, Ferrari was spun off from the Fiat Chrysler Group and listed independently. Stock ticker, RACE. On its IPO day, shares surged, and the valuation quickly exceeded $30 billion. Ferrari was no longer a small family workshop in northern Italy. It was a premium asset on Wall Street. But listing meant answering to shareholders, expanding sales, and maintaining profit growth. For a brand whose founder said, "I don't want to build more cars," this was an inherent tension. In 2022, Ferrari launched the Purosangue, the brand's first ever four-door, four-seat SUV. The news exploded across the automotive world. Enzo Ferrari had refused to build an SUV his entire life. He said, "Ferrari is not for taking the family to the supermarket." The Italian word Purosangue means thoroughbred. The name was both self-mocking and defiant. Even as an SUV, it was still a horse. Under the bonnet, the Purosangue carried a 6.5-liter naturally aspirated V12, making 715 horsepower, sprinting from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 3.3 seconds. Its performance numbers still humiliated the Lamborghini Urus and Aston Martin DBX. But the questions never stopped. When Ferrari builds an SUV, is the horse still a horse? Faced with global combustion engine bans, Ferrari gave its own answer. It did not declare an all-electric future like Lamborghini, nor did it floor the pedal like Tesla. Ferrari's strategy was soft and gradual, hybrids as the advanced guard, full EVs as the final card. In 2019, Ferrari launched its first hybrid supercar, the SF90 Stradale. In 2023, CEO Benedetto Vigna announced that Ferrari would launch its first pure EV in 2025. At the same time, he stressed, an all-electric Ferrari will retain the sound of a V12 synthetically. That enraged traditionalists, but it also made a younger generation accept the fact the Prancing Horse is going electric. By 2030, the European Union plans to ban sales of new petrol-powered cars. By then, Ferrari will almost certainly phase out pure internal combustion engines. But the core logic that Enzo Ferrari once established will not change. Whether the engine burns petrol or electrons, Ferrari does not sell transportation. It sells desire. As the rich change what they want, Ferrari changes with them. It uses six-cylinder hybrids to please environmental taxes, V12s to please old-school millionaires, and full EVs for the next generation of buyers. That is not betrayal. That is business. Let's go back to Maranello. Enzo Ferrari's office remains exactly as he left it, a wooden desk, a telephone, and a pair of old gloves on the desk. He almost never appeared in public, never gave interviews, never signed cars. He locked himself inside the walls of Maranello and, with a pen, commanded the fastest machines on Earth. Someone once asked him why he was so ruthless. He answered, "Racing is not entertainment. Racing is blood, it is death, and it is crushing your opponent." 100 years later, Ferrari is no longer just a car maker. It is an identity, a symbol of power, a ticket to a certain social class. You can spot a Ferrari on any street because its shape was never designed just to look good. It was designed to tell you that this horse will reach the finish line before you do. When that horse no longer roars, will it still be Ferrari? Leave your thoughts in the comments.